So good morning, one and all present here. So it gives me an immense pleasure in introducing our guest for today, Mr. Kevin Gandhi, who will be sharing his experience and knowledge in the field of cybersecurity. So to begin with, Kevin is our proud alumnus, and he completed his undergraduate program in Computer Science and Engineering from Gokte Institute of Technology in the year 2014, and later went on to study cybersecurity and privacy under his master's program in New Jersey Institute of Technology from 2014. Then later, he joined Party City as IT security specialist and worked there from August 2017 to August 2019. And presently is working with Digitalware as a cybersecurity operations engineer since August 2019 and taking the responsibility for endpoint security, vulnerability management, incident response, and automation. His top skills lie in Python, cryptography, C++, and also he has full proficiency in languages like English and Hindi. Okay, with this brief introduction, I present before you Mr. Kevin Gandhi, cybersecurity professional, who has his gist for nothing but elements surrounding cybersecurity. And we are fortunate enough to have him as our guest speaker for today. So thank you, Kevin, for joining us.
Thank you, ma'am, for inviting me. I feel really honored to be presenting today in front of so many students of GIT. And it's really special because I graduated from here and I knew that someday cybersecurity is going to be really big in India. And definitely I'll have to talk somewhere about it. And it feels nice to start off with GIT itself.
Yes, Kevin, we are really happy to have you with us. I request everybody to adhere to the code of conduct. And Kevin, will you be taking the questions in between or after the session?
I can. If anyone has a question, they can post it in chat or they can talk about it. They can interrupt me. That's totally fine.
Okay, fine. Or they can take it after the session or they can post it in the chat box and we can take it at the end. Okay, Kevin, so over to you now and you can start the session. All yours.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Hi, everyone. So today I'm going to, I was initially going to introduce myself, but ma'am has done it better than I do. So anyway, I'm going to start off by saying that right now I work as a security engineer at Revealed, and we just got rebranded from Digitalware, and we are managed security service providers, and we provide services to New York City government for endpoint security and incident response and vulnerability management and automation sometimes. And I selected this topic, Did I Get Phished? Because in my career, I have noticed that most of the threats that come into an organization come through phishing emails. And it does not matter how much the amount of security awareness people have, even regardless of that person being the CEO or the CISO or just an analyst or anyone in the company, everyone gets phished at some or the other time. And there's nothing to feel bad about it. It's just a learning experience.
Kevin?
Yep. Hello, ma'am. Can you hear me? Hello? Can you hear me? Okay, awesome. Okay, so let me get started. So today I'm gonna cover the topics of what is phishing, how does it work, what are some different types of it, whether I or any user can get phished, or how can we avoid getting phished, what happens once we are phished, and also some insight into how we can phish our friends and family for training purposes, not to hack anyone, and how to create a phishing template that users will mostly click on your email, and of course, the importance of security awareness. So, what is phishing? It is, but of course, derived from the word fishing. To fish, it means that we set up a bait on a fishing line and we just put it in water, and then we wait for someone to eat the bait. And once someone eats it, that fish got fished. In internet terms, an attacker or a malicious actor can send an email which constitutes of an attachment or maybe some link, or it has some form of data or text into it that makes user the end user feel that he needs to respond to that email, and that's when the person gets phished. And it can be about disclosing some personal information, or it can just be replying to that email, and that's all it takes. So it's mostly a type of social engineering attack. How does it work? So as I said, the attacker will just send a phishing email to as many people as possible, and they will sit hoping that someone will take some action into it. Business email compromise, that's a little bit of a broad term, not a broad, but a narrowed down term, and mostly used in organizations and not just in personal emails, where if you work for a company X and if you deal with a company Y, the phishing email that you get can look like it has come from your own company X itself or from company Y. And it makes it a lot difficult to figure out if it is a phishing email or not. Let's look into some types of phishing emails. The first is spear phishing. This is a targeted form of spear phishing where the attacker knows the ins and outs of a company, all the different departments of the company, and not just the departments, but the specific users in those departments. For example, if they want to find out some credit card information, then they will target the accounting department or the finance department of a company. They won't be forwarding that email to HR department because they won't have the financial information. And in this case, business email compromise will be the most common attack vector because it increases the chances of the user clicking on the email or performing some sort of an action to get phished. Whaling is a narrowed down form of spear phishing where the company's C-level executives or director level people, they are specifically targeted. The people who come under the analyst level or just the engineer level or coordinators, they don't fall under the term whaling because targeting them won't be as much fruitful as targeting the CEO, because if the attackers wanted some credit card information, then they will most definitely want the information of a CEO, not just an engineer. Smishing is a type of attack where phishing is performed using SMSs. Everyone might have received some SMS at some point of time in their lives where it'll say that you have a delivery that is pending from Amazon or Flipkart, and you have to respond to it to open the door maybe, or just to click on the link to reschedule the delivery. And once you open that link, anything can happen. Phishing is a form of voice phishing where you might get some scam phone calls saying that your insurance has expired or your car's warranty has expired or you haven't paid your taxes, and they will speak in a way that will make you feel that you have to respond to that call by giving out some information that they are asking for. Clone phishing is kind of a difficult concept because to perform it in a way, that is because it means that the attacker already has a set of emails that have been sent to a particular user in the company, and later on the attacker can just change some information in the email. For example, the link. If there is a shortened URL in the email which says go.gl or bit.ly, the attacker can just change that page to something else, and that is called a clone phishing because the existing message with the to information from information subject and the body, everything is copied over, but just it has been tampered with malicious stuff in the attachment or the link. Can I get phished? Yes, everyone can get phished. It does not matter who you are, how well informed you are in cybersecurity. No one is unsusceptible. Everyone at some point of time in their lives has gotten phished. Even I've gotten phished. And whoever says hasn't, they're just probably lying. So, the first step is if you receive a suspicious email, do not open it. Just opening the email won't be as that bad, but responding to it or clicking on a link or downloading the attachment can be really bad. So, what will you do if you receive a phishing email? The first step is to report phishing. In Gmail, if you have a personal email in Gmail, you can just click on those three dots above and click report spam or report phishing. If you are working in an organization, then in Outlook, you'll have the option to report phishing or report spam again. And in other ways, you can just take a screenshot of it and send it over to the IT security teams in your company. But never ever download the message anywhere possible, be it your personal email or your corporate email. Once you download that message, it will be temporarily stored in your memory, in your hard drive, and that is more than enough to trigger an attack. I'll get back to this in an incident response example that I will present in some time and which we had actually performed in Party City, I think 2 or 3 years ago. How can I avoid getting phished? First is monitor all your online accounts as frequently as possible. Keep changing your passwords. Keep them as complex as possible. Use some sort of a password management tool like Bitwarden or LastPass. Some tools are paid, but paying for these tools is better than getting your credentials stolen. If you just save it in Chrome or Firefox, it's not safe at all, ever. So don't do that. And keep your browser updated. Firefox and Chrome, the most commonly used browsers, release updates every week or sometimes even more. So keep that updated. If you are just a version or two below it, it's fine, but it's better to be updated. Don't click on any email links from unknown sources. And this does not just apply to unknown sources. Even if it is a known source, be wary of it always, because you never know that the email that you've gotten is actually from your friend or your colleague or not. Be aware of all the pop-up windows. Sometimes using JavaScript, what can happen is if you open up an email on your Gmail, for example, you don't even have to click over it. A person can just hover over the email and that can start generating pop-ups. By pop-ups, I mean any action whatsoever. Never give out your personal information over the email. If you have to send some sort of your personal information like your Aadhaar card number or your PAN card number or your driver's license number, try to encrypt it in a Word file and send that encrypted Word file over an email. But don't just type it in plain text and send it over because that can be tampered with. Or even if not tampered with, they can just be stolen and you'll never know about it. And be aware of all the social and emotional lures that come through your way. If someone says that please give me this information or please do this or that, don't fall for it. It's 100% a tactic to get something out of you. Stay informed and learn about new techniques always. You don't have to be on top of it every day or every week, but take some time, maybe around 10 or 15 minutes once a month, and you will find definitely some updates that are coming through, most probably on YouTube. And please use common sense. Okay, so what happens after I get phished? The personal phishing risks that one, for example, these are the few. The first one being money will be stolen from your account, or there will be some charges on your credit cards. Now, both of these can be interchanged, but how does this happen? You won't just give out your credit card information like that. But for example, if you give out your password to someone and you send it over an email, attacker can use that password and your originating email, and then they can try to see if those credentials work against your banking sites. If they do, they start selling it over the dark web. So it does not matter if you have 10 rupees in your account or you have a crore. Once it goes up on the dark web, it can be purchased for as cheap as around $30. And I have seen some instances where we get we are able to buy credit cards that go for around 30 or $35 and that have a limit of 10,000 or $20,000, which, I mean, if anyone comes across is, people will be tempted and people do get tempted and people do buy it. Another is losing access to all your photos, videos, and whatever files you have stored in your system. So if you have a phishing email, you download some attachment, it will download some form of malware, or it will itself be a malware. It will start deleting stuff or start encrypting stuff, and that way you'll start losing access. And moving forward with fake social media posts, if I think almost everyone over here is on Facebook or Instagram or some form of a social media site, and you will come across some friend at some point of time that will post a status saying, hey, friends, don't respond to the email or don't respond to the message that you've gotten from me on Facebook. My account was hacked from so and so time. This is my new account, blah, blah, blah. And that way, attackers can take control of your profile as well. Another is identity theft and identity fraud. People usually use these terms interchangeably, but it's not exactly black and white like that. Identity theft, for example, means if, for example, your driver's license gets stolen, then your identity was stolen. But if it was not used, then it's not an identity fraud yet. If someone uses your driver's license to enter a bar, then in that way, that is called an identity fraud. So identity theft is a subset of identity fraud. Oops, one sec. At work, what can be the risk? Same as personal, loss of corporate funds. Now, that loss will be much greater than your personal loss because a lot of money will be stolen, or a lot of personal information about a lot of users will be leaked. And this can happen if the HR department's roster gets stolen, or if there is a breach that arises from a phishing email. Next is ransomware. So if you click on an email and it downloads some attachment, and then it will again reach out to some C2C, I mean command and control server, it will download another file, and that can be a ransomware that starts locking all of your systems. And the main thing that happens with phishing that actually does some sort of malicious activity in the organization is the damage to your company's reputation, because all of this information is public. If a company does not want to make this public, they have to pay up a lot of money. So, and to protect the interests of the people, companies have to come forward with it and say that your info, our the information we have stored in our databases or data centers has been stolen, and these are the ramifications of it. And if they want to pay out some of their users, they can. Any questions so far? Okay. So this is an incident response example that I mentioned earlier that I will be giving out. So this happened at Party City, where I was working as an information security specialist, and I was involved with vulnerability management and incident response and phishing campaigns. So these were my main areas of activity. And one day we started receiving a lot of antivirus alerts about 2 or 3 different Trojans across around 50 or 55 machines from our network. So once we found that out, we looked up their hash, SHE256 hash to be specific, to see if we can find more information on what those Trojans actually do. There are some websites like VirusTotal or Reverse-It, which is also called hybridanalysis.com, that will list out all the activity that a particular piece of malware will perform. So basically, once you upload that malware to those sites, they will reverse engineer it and see what registry entries it performs, or if it deletes or creates new files, or if it reaches out to any domains or any C2C servers, and everything else about it. So what we did with that hash, once we found it out, is we looked up in our SIM, which is also called as Security Information and Event Management Tool, specifically Splunk, to see if we could find more instances of those malware inside the organization. Because just because if we received 50 or 55 alerts from the antivirus does not mean that there were only those many instances of that piece of malware. Now, antivirus performs two different scans. One is called on-access scan, the other is on-demand scan. On-demand scan is where we run full scans on the systems, and that is usually done once a week because it's too resource intensive and users cannot experience any sort of downtime during their day-to-day activities. On-access scan means that if you click on a file, it opens up and the antivirus detects it as a piece of malware. So you accessed it on access scan. Or if something else tries to open a file, for example, if you run some piece of code and it opens up another file, it is still accessed, even if you did not manually click on it. So once we had that information, we started finding where those Trojans actually came from. As I mentioned, we were researching about those on hybrid analysis and some other reverse engineering sites. We found out around 6 or 7 different IPs that those Trojans were connecting to from our network. This was in the firewall, but only one of those IPs was found during reverse engineering. And that was enough for us to try and figure out what other activities this particular piece of malware might be doing. So once we found out that the particular piece of malware was downloaded from a certain IP X, we started finding out if we only received an inbound connection from that IP or if there was another outbound connection from our own network as well. And we were able to locate that connection from around 85 to 90 different systems in our network. So 85 to 90 systems actually reached out to those IP addresses, but the Trojan was downloaded on only 50 or 55 of them so far. What happened was we tried to establish what created the initial connection from our system to those C2C servers, command and control servers. It was a Word file that had a macro in it, which actually had a PowerShell command embedded into it to download files. This particular Word document was an invoice. Now, once we knew that this file is an invoice, it kind of gave us a clue where to find this particular document in. I mean, in which department of the company. And another thing that this particular Word document was called Word 97 M downloader. M means just a macro. So Word 97 macro downloader. Downloader because that Word file was not exactly malicious by itself. It was just a script to download other malicious files like Trojan that I first mentioned. Then we started looking into where the Word file is located, and it was in the temporary Outlook folder. That gave us a clue that this might have come through in a phishing email. So we took the hash, SHE256 hash from here, and started looking through our Proofpoint email security service that we have to see what emails have an attachment of the particular Word file that matches the SHE256 hash of this file, Word doc macro. And again, we found 85 different users with it. So once we had that information, we collected all of those systems. We started blocking all of those IPs, all inbound and outbound IPs to the 6-7 different command and control servers that we found from our network. And once we did that, we did not exactly know if there were any other users or any other files that might have been downloaded. So the conclusion was we had to reimage all of the users that we encountered to have received that email. In other words, we just reformatted their systems so that they were as good as new. And then they were provided some security training on why they should not click on any emails or any other sort of phishing activity like SMSing, smishing. All right, so for the fun stuff, how to fish. OSINT means open source intelligence tools. Using Multigo, if you have a domain that you need to, if you try to target some particular company X and you want to find out their users in it, you can download the tool Multigo. There is a community edition of it which is free of charge to be used for 12 different domains, I think, last I checked. And it's compatible on Windows and Linux both. And once you enter the domain that you want, it will crawl through all their websites and all of the information that's present on the internet for that particular domain or the company, and it will lay out a graph in front of you, and that graph will constitute the hierarchy of the people in that company as well. Another tool is called Blackeye. Blackeye has a number of different login pages for sites like Google, Amazon, iTunes, and you can use this tool to generate those sites, connect it with a server, SMTP server, and send out emails from it to your friends or family, not to hack anyone. Now, just having these tools is not enough. You need to understand how to get that particular victim to click on your phishing email. And that is done by social engineering. For example, you can meet someone and you can ask for their information, but you cannot just go and ask for their password. So you'll try to talk them out, you'll try to find out their email address, you'll send them an email, and in that email, you can just say that, okay, your Facebook account password has expired, please type it out again. And using Blackeye, you can do that. Okay, now once you have this information, if you want to send that email out to around, say, 10 or 15 different users, those users can be just your family members that you want to make them aware of on how to prevent phishing attacks or just to give them an insight into this criminal world. There is a tool called GoFish, which is an open source tool again. It's completely free of cost. You can create different templates in it, and in those templates you can then provide some data or text. There are some free templates as different language templates as well if you want to target users and target your family members in another country or something. And they take around 100 users as an input. And then finally, you can just send out the fish. Any questions so far?
Kevin, we don't have questions so far.
Okay.
All right. So you can continue, and then we'll see if we can take up like questions. Yeah.
Sure. So now that you know how to create a phishing email, how will you actually create it? You just cannot say that, please type in your password or please give me this information. The first thing that you need to do is establish authority of some sort. If, for example, in a company, if that email comes from the CEO stating that you have to perform some actions, that will actually carry more worth than getting an email from, for example, a security engineer. Another is intimidation. In common words, blackmail. The email will tell you if you don't perform these actions, so and so bad things will happen. Like if you don't pay your taxes in time, then all your accounts will be frozen. Now, just saying that is not enough. They have to give out some form of other information as well, like consensus. With this, they can either say that there are around 100 users that failed to, not users, but 100 people that actually did not pay anything in their taxes and they were put in the jail for 50 years. So that kind of scares the victim because they'll feel that they are not alone who have gotten this email and they're not special, but a lot of people have fallen for it. Or sometimes people won't even understand that it is a phishing email. Next is creating scarcity. This can be done in lottery emails. For example, if you get an email stating, okay, you have $10,000 waiting for you to be claimed. There are 3 other winners, and whoever clicks on this first will get that money. Now, it's generating scarcity. No one is going to get that money. Another is familiarity. You won't just click an email, for example, from xyz@abc.com if you get it stating that you have to perform some action. But if you get it from something like Amazon in this particular example, you will be familiar with it. Almost everyone will be familiar with it. And that also kind of establishes a trust. But even that won't be enough sometimes. Creating a sense of urgency will actually tip the victim off to perform that action, to click that email, to perform that defining factor of getting phished or not. In this example on the right side, it says, if you want to cancel or modify your order, get in touch before it gets delivered at blah, blah, blah. This is creating a sense of urgency. You do not want to fall for it. If you find some emails like this, straight up call up the customer care number and ask them if this is actually true. If they say it is true, well, go ahead and do it, whatever they are asking for. But 100% it's not going to be the case. And a few other indicators will be that the from address will be something dumb like this, your invoice which says adahr blah 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 at gmail.com. If it is actually sent by Amazon, they will send from at amazon.com. Also, the to address is something weird and you are BCC'd. If something is being sent to your place or getting delivered, you won't be BCC'd on an email. Another indicator is there is no name of the delivery recipient. So it just says, thank you for your recent purchase. Sometimes it'll just say, hi customer. That is not just enough. The next line says, your account has been set for auto debit from your saved billing on the account in the next 24 hours. This will also create a sense of intimidation and urgency, because if you haven't set up anything, then you will be scared, as in what's happening. You will be intimidated by it. And as I mentioned, Amazon becoming familiar and trust. So this is a way in which you can set up a phishing email to phish your friends and family, of course. The first thing that you need to remember while creating a phishing email, that you are setting up a trap. If you are setting up that trap for someone within your organization, as if any one of you might end up in a career in cybersecurity, they will face some project where, not face, but they will be included in a project about phishing campaigns where they have to phish all of the users in the company, be it 10,000 or 1 lakh, it does not matter. How will you do that? The first thing that you need to think about is if you can impersonate someone, for example, the CEO. But just that won't be enough. You'll have to create some sort of an urgency or trust consensus. You do not need to pick all of the adjectives from here, but urgency and authority is the most common one seen in e-phishing emails. And the most common one that you can send in a company is password reset emails. The phishing campaigns that I was doing myself for password reset stuff resulted in around 45 to 46%, I think, people actually giving out their passwords in it. By what I mean by giving out their passwords is we did not record anything. As soon as they clicked enter on the, as soon as they clicked the link in that email, they got routed to our security education email saying that it's a trap, or maybe that you have been phished. Follow this other link for your security education presentation. And then they had another 15 minutes of presentation on what they did and how they can avoid that. Now, if you are trying to create an email, that phishing email that actually comes from the outside of your organization, the most common one is an invoice. When it comes to monetary matters, everyone in the company will actually be a little skeptical about it, but also feel that they have to respond to it. So your accounting department or the finance department will be the most liable people in your organization always to get phished using invoice emails. And if you are trying to set up a phishing email that targets users from other countries, then you have to start looking into the politics of those countries. For example, right now in Russia and Ukraine, if you have if your company has some sort of a presence in Ukraine and you want to try and test if they are susceptible to Russian cyber warfare, then you will create that email in such a way that the user will click on it. For example, it can be Russia is going to invade Ukraine in the next 3 or 4 hours. If you're against it, if you show support for your nation, click on this link. Now, anyone from any country, if they get an email stating you are going to be invaded, please try to show support, please try to donate some money for our troops who are going to fight them, people will fall for it because it is targeting their nationalism, their patriotism, in common words, their sentiments about their country. So, how can we avoid phishing emails from bypassing our email protection services? The first is to redirect all the links within the email to other mail protection servers so that they actually, before the recipient receives it, those links will be tried and tested, and your email should have a header that says this email generates from an external sender. Now, how can you do this? If you work for abc.com, and if you work for a company called ABC and you are not expected to receive emails from any other company whatsoever except for a company X, which lies somewhere else in the world. But if you receive an email from company Y, then that email will state in bold red letters or black letters that this was an external email. Please be careful. Please do not click on it. It can be a phishing email. Coming back to the first point of redirecting links to protection servers, those links are actually sandboxed and everything is tested in it. All the links and all the attachments, if it is an attachment, the file gets downloaded over there, it gets blown up, it gets reverse engineered to see if it is malicious or not. If all the checks pass through it, it will be forwarded to the end user in the end. Emails should also be scanned for temporary passwords or potential passwords or any banking information. Many of the email security services nowadays have the ability to detect patterns within your email. For example, if you have a pattern recognition rule set up to detect all your PAN card numbers, then what the protection service will do is to mask that PAN card number with X's or Y's, and it will say that please contact the user directly. Or if they have an Aadhaar number, they'll just mask that off with black letters, or it'll just replace it with XXXXX. How can this be avoided? So, in email security, there are two different policies called Sender Policy Framework and Domain Keys Identified Mail. Sender Policy Framework states that if the originating IP of your email matches the domain of the company you are receiving the email from, it's fine. For example, Google has this DNS service called 88888. Receiving emails from 88888, and if it's registered to google.com, is totally fine. But if you receive an email from 8.8.8.9 and that email is not registered to google.com, in that case, that email can be dropped. But the sender policy framework won't just drop that email. The next thing it will do is to check the digital signature of that email to see if a user has actually sent that email or not, or if it has been tampered with. This is done using DKIM, which stands for Domain Keys Identified Mail. Both of these services don't exactly drop the email or quarantine it or do anything at all. They just note if an email is suspicious or not. Combining both of these policies is done by DMARC, which is actually known as Domain-Based Message Authentication Reporting and Conformance. So if the SPF and DKIM checks fail, the DMARC rule can actually reject the message, or it can quarantine the message, because sometimes what happens is just due to human error, some system administrator will forget to include their new IP address that they just procured into their SPF records. If they don't do that, the SPF check can fail. Now, this does not exactly mean that the email is malicious. It's just a possibility of human error, and the email will be quarantined in that condition. Now, it is the job of the email administrator or the security administrator in this case to contact the domain owner, which can be the other company's system administrator or email administrator or the CISO, to see if this email actually originated from you. They can grab the message headers, see all the IP addresses and the domain names that it originated from, and they can then later confirm it. How can we defend against phishing? Now, as I mentioned in the last point, the first thing to do is to follow up the person that you got that email from. Now, don't just reply to that email. Don't send another email. Call up that person separately using a phone number or from a separate phone number that you have, so that you go through a different mode of communication to the sender of that phishing email. If they say that they have sent the email indeed, it can be possible that it's not a phishing email and your email rules are just falsely noting it as a phishing email, which kind of does not happen. Be careful of what you post on social media. If you go to a pub sometimes, or if you go to a restaurant, or if there is a place that you frequently visit, you do not need to always post where you are, because an attacker can be waiting for you in that place. I mean, the cyber attacker can be waiting for you in that place. They might try to strike a friendly conversation with you and later on try to gain some information about you. So always be wary of who you talk to and what you post on social media. Always use multi-factor authentication. You have a lot of authenticator tools like Microsoft Authenticator or Google Authenticator, or you even have YubiKeys, which are just USB drives that are as small as flash drives that generate a 6-digit code like a Google Authenticator does. You just have to click on it. It's fingerprint oriented. Also, be wary of emails that have potential to create a sense of urgency, or if it says it comes from the CEO of Google. Most likely you won't be receiving a email from the CEO of Google. And if you are suspicious about any email whatsoever, check the headers on MX Toolbox. On Outlook, you can click on File, go to Properties, copy all of those headers, put it on MX Toolbox, and see if the IPs and domains that it has originated from is blacklisted or not, or if it is reputable or not, or if you just want to have some fun into it, if you want some more information or learn about email security. And lastly, if you don't check your emails, you cannot fall for phishing scams. That's kind of actually not true, because even if you receive an email with an attachment in it, that attachment will still be stored in the temporary folder of your drive. For example, in most likely in Outlook, not in Gmail though. Now, the last one, the importance of security awareness. No matter who you are, there's always something to learn about security. And the more you learn, the more you feel that you can learn. The only best thing about learning about IT security is that you will be less susceptible to falling for phishing emails. In all organizations that I've been so far and that my friends have been so far, everyone has some sort of security education that they have to be a part of at least once every quarter, 3 months. That includes mostly information about social engineering, phishing emails, physical security. By physical security, I mean letting others pass into your building by keeping the door open for them. You don't have to be nice all the time. You can just let the door close. You never know who that person is, who you are letting into that company, I mean, into that building. They can be an attacker who's just going to the data center and create some disturbance. If the staff is educated in security, they will continuously keep updating their softwares. They won't be running 20 older versions of Chrome or Firefox. if all the softwares are up to date, it increases the compliance of the organization as a whole. This, in turn, can increase the company's reputation because, based on compliance, companies are given ratings. If they have a good standing, other companies will want to do business with them. Another thing is that education helps, security education specifically, helps build a lot of morale within the end users in the company. People will be a little bit more confident about what they are seeing on emails and not. If you don't have any sort of security education, there will be a lot of work for the security folks in your company and a lot of damage of reputation as well. Educating people on security will definitely take some time. Things don't change overnight. For example, when I was at DDB Worldwide, we had around 12 or 13,000 users across the globe, and I ran around 8 different phishing campaigns in a total of 8 months. So one phishing campaign every month. When we started off with it, around 45 to 46% of people in the organization clicked on the email, in the phishing email. That included the CTO as well, which does not look well for the company. So whoever clicked on the emails, we targeted them for another campaign within that same month, and they again clicked on it. Around 70 or 72% clicked on those emails again. Then we started running the campaign again for the next month and the month after that for 8 months in total. And during that period, if out of any 3 phishing campaigns, if users clicked on the email twice, then we targeted them for specialized security education where we invited them to board meetings and personal meetings, and we told them on how they should be aware of it. And by the time I was done running the 8th campaign, the number of people who actually were clicking on the phishing emails dropped down to 6 or 7%, if I remember correctly. So, bringing the number of people who got phished from 45% to 7% took around 8 months. It can take longer, it can take shorter. It depends totally on the user and the security folks in the company. In the end, it lies in the hands of security folks. These exercises take a lot of money, but in the end, it's cheaper than actually paying for breaches or paying for ransomwares or trying to bring up the reputation again. In the end, you will have some peace of mind. Any questions? Okay, I can see one question. Hello?
Kevin, we have a question in the chat box as well as
Yep.
Prajwal wants to ask a question. So,
Sure thing.
yeah, over to you, Prajwal.
Ma'am, we can finish the text question in the chat box first. I'll ask it after that.
Okay,
Fine.
fine. Okay, fine.
Okay, sounds
Okay.
good. So the question is, what can be the scope of job opportunities for our students in cybersecurity arena? So the easiest answer to that is keep applying for jobs. Don't be disheartened. Getting into cybersecurity as a career can be daunting. It's not as easy, but it's all well worth it. I myself, after graduating from my master's degree, had to look for 3 months to get a job. But when I did, it all panned out well. During those 3 months, I kept applying for as many jobs as possible. I studied more than I had studied during my entire master's degree as well. And that involved a lot of deep cybersecurity education. And once you are in cybersecurity, it does not mean that you have to just learn about those security aspects of it. For example, if you're trying to find vulnerabilities in a piece of software, you have to understand what the software does as well. So a coder will create that software, but a security software engineer will understand what the software does and give security recommendations for it. So you have to be apprised with as much of knowledge as possible. And simply put, keep applying for jobs. Even I did not think that I'll end up with a cybersecurity job as a cybersecurity professional when I was in my first or second year, or even during my third year of engineering. It's just something that comes from within. You keep researching as much as you can, and you get into it. Okay, Prajwal, I think you had a question.
Yes. So, as we are seeing now, there's so many awareness programs, by government, by the government, by so many companies. All of these articles, like newspapers, like
Right.
you have to be aware of these things. Like you may get messages or emails to click on such links, but it may lead
Hmm.
to a lot of harm. But even after so many campaigns and awareness programs, you're still seeing that the crimes are just still increasing, and there's so many people are still falling into it. Why do you think that is? Even after all these programs, I wanted your opinion on this. Why do you think that is even? And if and what can we do to like if more to make it more effective?
So it is true that the number of threats are increasing, and it is also true that there are so many awareness programs as well. Now, the only reason we have so many awareness programs is because hacking has become very much accessible to everyone. Not easy, but very accessible. If you just download Kali Linux and you try to look into some of its tools, the most basic tool can be AirCrack, for example. You can start hacking into Wi-Fi's with it. And you don't even need to be an administrator or anything. You can just go into CCD or someplace, try to sniff that network, break off its WEP and WPA2 keys, and you are connected to it. Once you are connected, you can sniff into all of the network traffic and see what other users were from CCD are doing with it. Now, if you have security awareness, people will start understanding, oh, there's something as security awareness. What are they trying to make me aware of? And once they see that, okay, they are trying to make me aware of phishing emails. What is phishing emails? They'll try to research into that. And then they'll find out that hacking is easy or accessible. So you don't, sometimes these security programs can actually lead to creating hackers, but it's not as much as making others aware of it. Right now, the number of security events that have been happening throughout the world has increased exponentially in the last 2 years because of the COVID pandemic and because people are working from home. Many a times, corporations do not have the financial ability to give out corporate laptops to each and every user possible. So many a times, users start using their home computers. Now, many companies do not have a policy where if they can bring their own device, they can be protected against it or not, because all of these antivirus tools are based on pay per user policies. So if you have 100 users, the company will pay for 100 users. But those 100 users, if they are protected, just the 100 desktops within the company, and if they start working from home, they have another 100 laptops. If they cannot or do not have visibility into that, that increases the threat landscape by two folds. And that is why the number of events keep going up. I hope you answered your question, Prajwal.
Yeah, sure. Also, something that I've been seeing on YouTube recently is that there are so
Hmm.
many of these channels coming up. Like there's one called Jim Browning, and
Okay.
they what do they do is they make videos. They essentially, uh, I'd say catfish scammers.
Okay.
They like on
Yep.
like all they record videos, and then they show how these people can do, like how sophisticated language and strategies they use to confuse the users.
Yes.
And they also show like how they respond to that and how they get. Of course, they are much more skilled, But could this be a useful way of creating more awareness, because YouTube is gaining a lot of is increasing in size in the user base. So could
Right.
this be a potential fix for that problem with awareness? Maybe.
Um, what can be the potential fix?
Like for example, maybe asking these YouTubers to make some more, because YouTubers have a very good, like, very, I think it's a very unique connection to the audience, rather than
Right.
the government or a company saying
Of
the same
course.
thing. Because the same thing, if a YouTuber says it, the audience will respond very differently to it.
Yes, definitely. You have
So
brought up
could
a
that
really
be
good
a
point.
much more effective communication? I'd say.
Yeah. I think it's another way of saying that you will rather trust a friend over a government entity that comes and says, don't click on this email.
Yes. Yes, that's
So definitely, if you watch some YouTube channels and you have some favorite users, I mean, everyone does, and they can definitely give out some information on it. They can, even if it's paid, even if they are getting paid for it, but if they can just say that, hey, you know what, this is some 2 minutes of security awareness, please don't click this email. A lot of things that I've been seeing on YouTube from the channels I follow, not security related, but random channels that I follow, is they try to encourage the use of VPNs, virtual private networks, and one of the most common ones is OpenVPN or NordVPN. These are paid services. OpenVPN is not, but it creates a sense of security in a person to think that, okay, maybe all of my browser traffic is getting intercepted. I should try to hide my steps, and in that way, they will start using it as well. Even I found some of the security tools and services that I have right now using some YouTube users, through some YouTube users, sorry. So that's definitely a good point. And if you know some people that have YouTube channels or have a good following on Instagram or Facebook or wherever possible, they can definitely reach out to more people than just the normal government stuff, because rarely do people reach out to government sites. I mean, yeah, people do sometimes if they have to check their results on the page, but people don't usually go on the government websites for any sort of stuff. You might rather click on
That's
YouTube.
what exactly. You would rather go to YouTube than government
Yeah,
site.
yep, and it's a much more fun way to learn security
Yeah,
than just reading, don't click on emails.
definitely. Okay, thank you very much for the answer my question.
No worries.
Yes,
Okay.
Kevin, we have few more questions here.
hmm
Uh, the chat box.
Yep. I can see one. The first question is from Bhaskara,
Yeah.
and it says, uh, SPF, DKIM, and DMARC. Can we explain it once again? Yes, sure. So SPF is used for matching IP addresses, DNS records. For example, if you have a company called Google, if you own it, and you have a set of IP addresses, and they are maybe 8.8.8.8 and 8.8.8.8, I mean 8.8.8.9. If only those two IP addresses are registered against your domain for your clients to not specifying your own company users, but your clients to receive emails from, then what Sender Policy Framework does is check those IP addresses if they are registered against your domain. If you receive an email from, say, something like 20.20.20.21, then it definitely is not within the list of registered IPs of SPF, and that can be a red flag. Coming to DKIM, domain keys identified mails, what this specifically does is there is a private key that is used to encrypt the email on the server side of the sender. On the receiver side, you will have a public key to decrypt that email. Now, once that email is sent from the sender to the receiver, it would also generate a hash, and that is used as a digital signature. So digital signature proves if the email you receive from the certain user is actually from that user, or if it has been tampered with or not, because it will generate a hash. Now that hash is a one-way function. It cannot be tampered with. If you change even one character within the email, it can be in the message body or an attachment, file name, or whatever it is, the hash will change. So the encrypted email is sent to the receiver along with the hash. Now, if the email gets tampered with, the hash changes. The receiver will not know if the email is tampered with or not, but the receiver's email protection server will decrypt the email using the public key that they have and compute its hash. If the hash matches the hash given out by the sender, then the email is not tampered with. If it has changed, then the email is tampered. And that is another red flag. Now, just these two red flags of getting the email tampered with using DKIM, or if the IP is different, are not just enough to perform some sort of action on that email. For example, to quarantine it. That is done by DMARC. DMARC combines both of SPF and DKIM to perform some action on that email. So if you have a red flag on either of SPF or DKIM checks, then the email can be quarantined or rejected totally. Or if the DMARC rules are that bad, no action can be taken on it. But usually, email administrators try to quarantine it. So the three options available that you can perform in DMARC is to do nothing at all, quarantine it, or directly reject it. And most likely it's quarantine. I hope I answered your question, Bhaskara. That was a good question, though. Okay,
Yes,
we have a
Kevin, we have we
Mhm.
have one more from Kirtana.
Yep. Kindly throw some light on research problems in phishing. That's a really good question. So sometimes what happens is even though you get phishing emails, it's very hard to figure out if that email is a phishing email or not. The language will be perfect. There won't be any mistakes or any grammatical errors in that email. All of this, it will even pass the SPF and DKIM checks as well if that email has originated from those particular IPs. This mostly happens in cases of business email compromise and clone phishing, where existing emails are just changed. For example, if you are to receive an email from a certain client about a certain, from a certain vendor regarding an invoice that comes into you every month, you won't think twice about it. It's a recurring email. Everything in the email is perfect. It just says, here's your invoice for the month of June. The balance is attached in the attachment. The balance is attached, and that's it. You don't have to respond to it ever. The email passes on to the accounting department, and then they will send off the money. But what can happen with this is an attacker can get a wind of it, and they will take the existing template of that message that gets sent every month, modify it a little, and send it again next month, maybe a day prior to the scheduled date. Now, the person who is receiving that email, if he has some sort of common sense, I would say, to see that if they were supposed to receive an invoice on 23rd of every month, but they receive it at 22nd at that time. If the user is security aware, then they will try to report it. If they don't, it will just pass off as a normal thing, and if and only if that email attachment gets detected in our antivirus solution or our EDR, endpoint detection and response solution, we'll get to know about it. But many a times what happens is we do not get to know about it. And this is true for almost all of the organizations, that we have a saying in cybersecurity that there is always some sort of advanced persistent threat present in your network all the time. It does not matter how good your security is, there is some attacker in your network. So, similarly, finding phishing emails that are actually phishing emails is getting very difficult. Even attackers have started using natural language processing and AI to figure out their emails, to craft it in a way to throw off all of the investigative tools and the people as well. So the more we do, sometimes we feel the less it is. Okay, I think we have a nice point from EC that says people are the weakest link, rather breaking firewall or bypass AV. That is kind of correct, because if you have bad firewall rules in your firewall, then inbound outbound connections won't be blocked. And bypassing AV is not that difficult as well. If an attacker gains some presence in your system, then they can just turn off the antivirus solution over there if they have the ability to do so.
Okay. Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you,
Yes.
everyone.
Yeah, thank you, Kevin. It was really a great session, and it was a pleasure to have you with us. I hope it will be continued in near future as well.
Of course, ma'am. And if any of you have any questions regarding cybersecurity, or if you guys want to continue or create a career in cybersecurity, then please don't hesitate to reach out to me on LinkedIn. I will help you out in any way possible. I mean, I cannot just give you a job, but I can always help you out with resumes and stuff. It's very nice to have people in cybersecurity because we have a lot of jobs, but we don't have enough people to fill them in.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Kevin.